The grand palace of Zephyria, prime gleamed like a jewel against the crimson sky of the twin suns. Inside its crystalline halls, whispers echoed through corridors lined with representatives from across the galaxy. Today marked the most significant event in recent galactic history. The formal presentation of suitors to Princess Lyralii, heir to the most powerful empire in known space. Princess Lyralii stood on the balcony overlooking the central courtyard, her ethereal blue skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that revealed her emotional state. Currently, those patterns swirled in deep purples and grays, colors that spoke of frustration and growing dread. At 25 cycles old, she possessed beauty that legends were written about, intelligence that surpassed most scholars, and telekinetic abilities so powerful they could reshape matter at the molecular level. Yet despite all these gifts, or perhaps because of them, she remained alone. "Your Highness," came the gentle voice of Ambassador Thexani, her closest advisor and childhood friend. The tall, graceful Velthari approached with flowing movements that seemed to defy gravity. "The final presentations will begin soon. The delegates from the Kronak Empire have traveled 3 stellar cycles to be here." Lyralii's patterns shifted to sharp reds and oranges. "Let me guess. Another proposal based on territorial expansion and military alliances? Another suitor who sees me as a prize to be won rather than a person to be known." Thexani's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of sympathy among her people. The Kronak Prince Valdarin is said to be different. His people speak of his wisdom, and his people would speak of his wisdom even if he possessed the intelligence of space dust. Lyralii interrupted, her voice carrying the weight of years of disappointment. "They all claim to be different, Thexani. They all claim to seek partnership rather than dominance. Yet when the negotiations begin, it always comes down to what their alliance with Zephyria can provide for their worlds." The princess moved away from the balcony, her long silver hair floating around her shoulders as if suspended in water. Her chambers were a marvel of architecture and technology, with walls that could display any environment she desired. Currently, they showed the peaceful meadows of her childhood, rolling hills of silver grass beneath a gentle amber sky. "Perhaps you judge them too harshly," Thexani suggested carefully. "Political alliances have always been political alliances," Lyralii repeated, her bioluminescent patterns now pulsing with frustrated yellows. "Is that all I am? A political alliance wrapped in royal robes? I have studied the histories, Thexani. I have read about love, about partnerships built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Are such things only possible in ancient tales?" Before Thexani could respond, a soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The air shimmered, and a holographic projection of Admiral Zekthor appeared. The old Zephyrian's scarred face bore the weight of countless battles. "Your Highness, forgive the interruption, but we have an unusual situation. A ship has entered our system requesting permission to attend the presentation ceremony." Lyralii's eyebrows rose slightly. "Unusual how? Are they not on the approved list?" "They're from a species called humans, Your Highness. From a world they call Earth. We had never heard of them before today." This drew Lyralii's full attention. In all her studies of galactic civilizations, she had never encountered any mention of humans or Earth. "Where is their world located?" "In what they call the Milky Way galaxy, in a remote arm far from established trade routes. Their ship is small, primitive by our standards, yet they somehow manage to traverse the vast distance to reach us. The technology required for such a journey. It should be impossible with their apparent level of advancement." Thexani stepped forward, her translator device humming softly. "Admiral, surely you cannot be suggesting we allow an unknown species to participate in such a sacred ceremony? The security risks alone." "They sent a single representative," Admiral Zekthor continued. "A young male who claims to come in peace, seeking only to pay respects to Princess Lyralii. His message was transmitted in 17 different languages, including several we thought were known only to our closest allies." Lyralii felt something stir within her, a curiosity she had not experienced in years. "Show me the message." The hologram shifted, and, suddenly, a new figure appeared. Lyralii caught her breath. The being was unlike any she had seen, bipedal like many species, but with smooth, unadorned skin of a warm brown color. Dark hair covered the top of his head, and his eyes were a striking blue-green, filled with an intelligence that seemed both ancient and youthful. "Greetings, Princess Lorelei of Zephyria Prime," the human began, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to reach across the vast distances of space. "My name is Marcus Chun, and I come from a world called Earth. I know this message arrives unexpectedly, and I understand if my presence is unwelcome. I do not come seeking alliance or advantage. I come because stories of your wisdom and kindness have somehow reached even our distant corner of the galaxy." He paused, and Lorelei found herself studying his face intently. There was no calculation in his expression, no carefully measured words designed to impress. He seemed genuinely nervous, almost vulnerable. "I ask only for the opportunity to meet you, to share stories of our worlds, and to offer my friendship if you would accept it. If my presence would cause discomfort or complicate your ceremonies, I will depart immediately. I seek nothing but the chance to know the person behind the legends." The message ended, leaving silence in the chamber. Lorelei stared at the space where the hologram had been, her bioluminescent patterns shifting through colors her advisors had rarely seen. Soft blues and purples mixed with bright golds, a combination that spoke of hope and intrigue. "Your Highness," Admiral Zekthor's voice broke the spell. "What are your orders?" Thexani moved closer, her voice low and concerned. "Lorelei, this could be some elaborate deception. We know nothing of these humans, nothing of their true intentions." But Lorelei was already moving toward her private communication console. For the first time in years, she felt truly excited about meeting someone new. "Admiral, inform the human that he has permission to attend. Assign him appropriate quarters, and provide him with cultural briefings about our customs." "Your Highness," Thexani protested, "the other suitors will view this as a grave insult. A unknown species being granted the same honors as ancient royal bloodlines." "The other suitors," Lorelei said firmly, her patterns now glowing with determined whites and golds, "have had their chances to truly see me. Perhaps it is time to discover what fresh eyes might reveal." As the communication ended and her advisors hurried away to make arrangements, Princess Lorelei returned to her balcony. The twin suns were beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reminded her of her own emotional patterns. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a human named Marcus Chun was traveling toward her world. For the first time in years, she found herself genuinely looking forward to tomorrow. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. After so many disappointments, after so many suitors who saw only her title and her power, could this stranger from an unknown world truly be different? Or was she simply allowing hope to cloud her judgment once again? As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Princess Lorelei made a decision that would change not only her fate, but the course of galactic history. She would meet this human with an open mind and an open heart, ready to discover what made his people brave enough to cross the galaxy for the mere chance of friendship. The greatest love stories she had read often began with the most unlikely encounters. The morning of the presentation ceremony arrived with all the pageantry Zephyrian tradition demanded. The great assembly hall stretched across several city blocks, its transparent dome offering a breathtaking view of the gas giant that served as Zephyria Prime's primary moon. Delegates from 47 different worlds filled the ornate seating areas. Their various forms of formal were creating a spectacular tapestry of colors and textures. Princess Lorelei entered through the ceremonial archway, her formal robes flowing behind her like liquid starlight. The garments had been crafted from thread made of crystallized light itself, shifting and shimmering with every movement. Her bioluminescent patterns were carefully controlled today, displaying the calm blues and silvers expected of Zephyrian royalty, though beneath the surface, excitement and nervousness warred for dominance. The first 3 presentations followed the expected patterns. Prince Valderin of the Kronak Empire spoke eloquently about military cooperation and shared technological advancement. His massive frame and battle-scarred carapace spoke of a warrior's life, and his formal proposal included detailed plans for expanding Zephyria's influence across 2 additional spiral arms. Duke Zarathan of the Christine Confederacy took a more subtle approach, emphasizing cultural exchange and mutual artistic development. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their mastery of sonic sculptures and temporal poetry, and his proposal included gifting Zephyria access to art forms that could literally reshape the perception of time. Lord Commander Vexai of the Titanium Worlds chose to focus on economic benefits, presenting detailed projections of how Marriage Alliance would create the most powerful trading empire in galactic history. His mechanical augmentations whirred softly as he gestured, his cybernetic implants calculating profit margins in real time. Each presentation was flawless in its execution, each suitor impressive in his own right. Yet as Princess Lyrelii listened, she felt the familiar weight of disappointment settling over her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Once again, she heard discussions of what she could provide, what her power could accomplish, what her alliance would mean for their civilizations. Not once did any of them speak of who she was as a person. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for with various degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Ambassador Thexani approached the central platform, her 4 arms moving in the traditional gestures of formal introduction, presenting Marcus Chun of Earth, representing the human species of the Sol system. A ripple of whispers swept through the assembly. Many of the delegates had heard rumors of this unprecedented addition to the ceremony, but seeing him in person created an entirely different reaction. Marcus stepped onto the platform with a confidence that surprised many observers. He wore simple, formal attire from his world, a dark blue suit that fitted his form well, with subtle silver accents that seemed chosen to complement Zephyrian aesthetics. His hair was neatly styled, and those striking blue-green eyes took in the assembly with obvious interest rather than intimidation. What struck Princess Lyrelii immediately was his size relative to the other suitors. Prince Valdarin stood nearly 8 feet tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. Duke Zarathan's crystalline form towered over most beings, refracting light in dazzling patterns. Lord Commander Vexai's augmented frame could probably punch through solid steel. Marcus Chin looked remarkably ordinary. Average height for a species, lean build, no obvious augmentations or natural weapons. Yet something in his bearing suggested he felt no need to apologize for his apparent limitations. "Your Royal Highness," Marcus began, offering a bow that managed to be respectful without seeming subservient. "I'm honored beyond words to stand before you today." His voice carried clearly through the great hall without amplification, and Princess Lyrelii noticed that he looked directly at her rather than addressing the assembly as a whole. Most suitors had spent their presentations speaking to the crowd, demonstrating their worthiness to the gathered witnesses. Marcus seemed genuinely interested in speaking with her specifically. "I must confess," he continued with a slight smile that seemed entirely genuine, "that I find myself in a unique position. Every other gentleman here today can offer you military might, technological wonders, or vast economic resources. My world possesses none of these advantages. We are young as civilizations go, isolated in a distant corner of space, and our greatest technological achievement was simply building a ship capable of reaching your magnificent world." Several delegates exchanged amused glances, clearly wondering where this was leading. Princess Lyrelii, however, found herself leaning forward slightly, intrigued by his honesty. "What I can offer instead," Marcus said, his tone becoming warmer, "is something far more rare than armies or treasures. I can offer you genuine curiosity about who you are as a person rather than what you represent as a princess." The assembly fell completely silent. Such a direct personal address during a formal presentation was unprecedented in Zephyrian protocol. Marcus seemed unaware of the breach in etiquette, or perhaps simply unconcerned with it. "During my journey here, I researched everything available about Zephyrian culture and history. I learned about your people's incredible achievements in bioengineering, your mastery of energy manipulation, your philosophical contributions to galactic thought. But what fascinated me most were the brief mentions of Princess Lyrelii herself." He paused, and Princess Lyrelii realized her bioluminescent patterns were beginning to shift despite her efforts to maintain formal composure. I read about the young princess who reformed the judicial system to ensure equal treatment for non-telepathic species. I learned about the ruler who personally funded relief efforts for 3 different worlds suffering from natural disasters, asking for nothing in return. I discovered stories of a woman who spent her free time in the palace libraries, not studying military strategy or economic theory, but reading poetry and philosophy from across the galaxy. Princess Lyralii felt her breath catch. These were not the achievements typically highlighted in official diplomatic briefings. Someone had taken considerable trouble to learn about her personal interests and private acts of compassion. Your Highness, Marcus continued, his voice gentle but carrying easily through the silent hall, I did not travel across the galaxy to propose marriage to the heir of the Zephyrian Empire. I came hoping to meet Lyralii, the person who writes her own poetry in 7 different languages, who keeps a private garden of plants from 40 different worlds, who once spent an entire week personally caring for injured refugees because she wanted to understand their experiences firsthand. The silence in the hall had become profound. Princess Lyralii was aware that her emotional patterns were now visible to everyone present, shifting through surprised golds and pleased purples in ways that would be analyzed by diplomatic corps for weeks to come. I cannot offer you expanded territory or increased military power, Marcus said, spreading his hands in a gesture of openness. What I hope to offer, if you would accept it, is friendship with someone who is interested in your thoughts rather than your treaties, your dreams rather than your dynasty, your happiness rather than your strategic value. He stepped back slightly, his presentation clearly complete, but then seemed to remember something and smiled again. Oh, and I brought you something? Not a gift intended to impress the assembly or demonstrate my world's capabilities, but something I thought you might personally enjoy. Marcus reached into his jacket and withdrew a small, simple object that gleamed softly in the hall's lighting. Princess Lyralii's enhanced vision immediately recognized what it was, and her patterns flared bright with surprise and delight. It's a book, Marcus explained to the assembly, though his eyes remained on Princess Lyralii. A collection of poetry from Earth, handwritten in the original languages with translations. I noticed in my research that you appreciate seeing how different cultures express complex emotions through verse. This includes works from dozens of human cultures across our history. The simple, personal nature of the gift created another stir among the delegates. Prince Valdarin had offered the keys to conquered star systems. Duke Zerathan had presented artifacts that could reshape reality itself. Lord Commander Vexhai had brought samples of the rarest materials in known space. Marcus Chun had brought a book of poems. Princess Lyralii rose from her throne, and the entire assembly immediately stood in response. Protocol dictated that she should thank all the suitors collectively and announce her decision after private deliberation with her advisors. Instead, she stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns now glowing with unmistakable warmth and genuine pleasure. Thank you, Marcus Chun of Earth, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Your gift is both thoughtful and treasured. She accepted the book, and as their hands briefly touched during the exchange, both felt something neither had expected. A simple, electric moment of connection between 2 people who had recognized something special in each other. The other suitors watched with growing alarm as Princess Lyralii spent several minutes examining the book, reading passages with obvious enjoyment, asking Marcus questions about the various human cultures represented. Her body language spoke of genuine engagement in a way none of them had managed to achieve. As the formal ceremony concluded, one thing had become clear to everyone present. The unknown human from the distant world had accomplished something that mighty princes and powerful lords had failed to achieve. He had made Princess Lyralii smile. The palace gardens at twilight were a sanctuary of peace and beauty that existed in perfect harmony between nature and technology. Bioluminescent flowers from a dozen worlds created patterns of living light along crystalline pathways, while gentle streams of liquid mercury reflected the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. Princess Lyralii walked slowly along her favorite path, the book of human poetry held carefully in her hands. She had spent the entire afternoon reading, fascinated by the range of human expression. Their poems spoke of love and loss, of courage in the face of impossible odds, of finding beauty in the most ordinary moments. What struck her most was how these distant people seemed to experience emotions with the same intensity and complexity as her own. "Your Highness!" She turned to see Marcus Chun approaching along the garden path, moving carefully to avoid disturbing the delicate ecosystem around them. He had changed from his formal presentation attire into simpler clothing more suited to walking. Dark pants and a light shirt that seemed to catch and reflect the garden's bioluminescent glow. "Marcus," she said, surprised by how pleased she felt to see him. "I hope you're finding your accommodations comfortable. I know our guest quarters are designed for a variety of species, but we have little experience hosting humans." "Everything has been wonderful," he replied, genuine gratitude in his voice. "Though I have to admit, the bed is about 3 times larger than anything we use on Earth. I felt like I was camping on a small continent." Princess Lyralii laughed, a sound like silver bells that made several nearby nocturnal flowers bloom in response to her joy. "I'll have the domestic staff adjust it to better suit human proportions." "Thank you, but please don't go to any trouble on my account." Marcus gestured to the garden around them. "I was actually hoping to explore these gardens. The botanical diversity here is incredible. On Earth, we're only beginning to understand how different plant species can coexist in complex ecosystems, but this garden seems to achieve something we would consider impossible." As they walked together, Princess Lyralii found herself explaining the careful balance of chemistry and energy manipulation required to allow plants from different worlds to thrive in the same environment. Marcus listened with obvious fascination, asking questions that revealed both scientific curiosity and genuine appreciation for the artistry involved. "On Earth, we have a concept called biomimicry," Marcus said as they paused beside a fountain where crystalline vines filtered and purified the flowing water. "We study how nature solves problems and try to copy those solutions in our technology. But what you've achieved here goes far beyond copying. You've created something entirely new while respecting the essential nature of each component." Princess Lyralii felt her bioluminescent patterns shifting to pleased blues and golds. Most visitors to the gardens focused on their beauty or rarity. Marcus was the first to truly understand the underlying philosophy of harmonious coexistence that guided their creation. "Tell me about Earth's gardens," she said, settling onto a bench carved from a single massive crystal. "What grows in your world?" Marcus sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance while still being close enough for easy conversation. "Our gardens are much simpler, but they have their own beauty. We have flowers that only bloom for a single day, but fill entire valleys with fragrance. Trees that live for thousands of years and grow so large that entire communities can live within their branches. Tiny plants that can survive in the harshest conditions by working together in vast networks that stretch for miles underground." He described Earth seasons, how plants died back in winter only to return with explosive life in spring. He spoke of oceans filled with microscopic organisms that glowed with their own light, creating waves that sparkled like liquid starlight. Princess Lyralii found herself entranced not just by his descriptions, but by the obvious love he felt for his world. "Your people must be remarkable gardeners to nurture such diversity," she observed. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression growing thoughtful. "Actually, we're still learning. For too long, humans focused on conquering nature rather than working with it. We came very close to destroying our world's delicate balances. Only in recent generations have we begun to understand that we are part of the ecosystem, not its masters." "What changed?" Princess Lyralii asked, intrigued by this glimpse into human development. "We learned that cooperation is more powerful than domination," Marcus said simply. "We discovered that the strongest solutions come from understanding and respecting the needs of all participants rather than imposing the will of the strongest." Something in his tone made Princess Lyralii study his face more carefully. There was depth in his words that spoke of personal experience as well as cultural observation. "Is that why you came here?" she asked gently. "To seek cooperation rather than domination?" Marcus turned to meet her gaze, and in the soft light of the garden's bioluminescent plants, his blue-green eyes seemed to hold depths that spoke of wisdom beyond his apparent years. I came here because the stories we heard about Princess Lyralii describe someone who embodies those same values. Someone who sees strength in collaboration rather than conquest, beauty in diversity rather than uniformity, wisdom in listening rather than commanding. Princess Lyralii felt her breath catch. What stories could possibly have reached Earth? We are so far from established trade routes, and our diplomatic communications rarely extend beyond neighboring systems. Marcus smiled, and there was something almost mysterious in his expression. The galaxy is smaller than you might think, Your Highness. Stories travel in unexpected ways, carried by traders and explorers, scholars, and refugees. Sometimes a single act of kindness creates ripples that travel farther than anyone imagines. Before Princess Lyralii could ask for clarification, they were interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Ambassador Thexani appeared on the garden path, her four arms moving in patterns of urgency and concern. Your Highness, forgive the interruption, but we have a developing situation. The other suitors have requested an emergency session with the Royal Council. They are expressing concerns about the protocols being followed during this presentation ceremony. Princess Lyralii's patterns shifted to annoyed oranges and reds. What specific concerns? They claim that allowing an unknown species equal standing with established royal bloodlines sets a dangerous precedent. Prince Valdarin in particular has suggested that Earth's technological limitations indicate they cannot be serious participants in galactic politics. Marcus stood, his movements careful and controlled. Your Highness, I never intended to create diplomatic complications. If my presence is causing difficulties, sit. Princess Lyralii said firmly, her patterns now blazing with determined whites and golds. Thexani, inform the council that I will address their concerns in the morning. Tonight, I am learning about human poetry and Earth's gardens. Thexani's four eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern. Your Highness, Prince Valdarin has implied that his empire might reconsider their alliance treaties if they feel their diplomatic standing has been diminished. Princess Lyralii rose, and suddenly the garden around them seemed to respond to her emotional state. Flowers blazed brighter, crystalline structures hummed with energy, and the very air seemed to thicken with power. Tell Prince Valdarin, she said, her voice carrying authority that made even the bioluminescent plants pause in their gentle swaying, that Zephyria's alliance treaties are based on mutual respect and shared values. If his empire cannot extend basic courtesy to a guest who has traveled farther than any of them to be here, perhaps we need to reconsider which partnerships truly serve our interests. Thexani bowed deeply and hurried away, leaving Marcus and Princess Lyralii alone in the garden once again. Marcus was staring at her with obvious admiration. That was magnificently done, he said quietly. You defended my presence without backing down from their pressure. On Earth, we would say you have excellent diplomatic backbone. Princess Lyralii laughed, her patterns shifting back to please blues and purples. Diplomatic backbone. I like that phrase. Your people have a gift for descriptive language. They sat back down, and this time Princess Lyralii noticed that Marcus settled slightly closer than before, near enough that she could catch hints of his scent, something clean and warm that reminded her of rain on growing plants. Marcus, she said softly, I need to ask you something directly. The other suitors came here seeking political advantage through marriage alliance. What exactly are you seeking? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on a nearby cluster of flowers that were slowly shifting through the spectrum of visible light in response to their conversation. I came seeking the possibility of something I had heard described, but never experienced, he said finally. The chance to meet someone who might understand that true partnership means seeing and appreciating who someone really is rather than what they can provide. He turned to face her directly, and Princess Lyralii saw complete honesty in his expression. I came hoping to discover whether the stories about Princess Lyralii were true. Whether somewhere in this vast galaxy, there really was someone who valued wisdom over warfare, kindness over conquest, genuine connection over political convenience. Princess Lyralii felt something warm and bright unfurling in her chest, something she had almost given up hope of ever experiencing. And what have you discovered? she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus smiled, and, in that simple expression, Princess Lyralii saw her answer reflected back at her. I discovered that the stories were true, he said softly. And I discovered that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys lead to exactly where you hope to arrive. The emergency council session convened at dawn in the Grand Chamber, where Zephyria's most important decisions had been made for over 1,000 years. The circular room was designed to accommodate delegates from various species, with adjustable atmosphere controls and seating configurations that could adapt to different physiological needs. Today, tension filled the air like an electric storm. Princess Lyralii entered wearing formal robes of state, her bioluminescent patterns carefully controlled to display calm authority despite the frustration burning beneath the surface. The three visiting suitors stood in a semicircle before the royal dais, their various forms of displeasure evident in their postures and expressions. Prince Valdarin's massive frame dominated the left side of the chamber, his battle-scarred carapace reflecting the room's crystal lighting in harsh angles. Duke Zarathan's crystalline form chimed softly with barely controlled irritation, colors shifting through his translucent body like a storm system. Lord Commander Vexhi's cybernetic implants whirred and clicked as they processed data streams, his mechanical augmentations betraying his emotional state through subtle changes in their operational patterns. Notably absent was Marcus Chun, though Princess Lyralii had specifically requested his presence. Admiral Zekthor had informed her that the human had voluntarily remained in his quarters, stating he preferred not to be present during discussions about his diplomatic status. "Your Royal Highness," Prince Valdarin began, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber like distant thunder. "We have served our peoples faithfully for decades, maintaining the stability and prosperity of this region of space. We cannot stand by while established protocols are disregarded for the sake of entertaining curiosities from unknown worlds." Duke Zarathan stepped forward, his crystalline form ringing like a complex musical instrument. The precedent being set here undermines the very foundation of diplomatic hierarchy. If any being can simply appear and claim equal standing with representatives of ancient civilizations, chaos will surely follow. Lord Commander Vexhi's response was more calculated, delivered in the precise tones of someone accustomed to treating diplomacy as a form of warfare. "Our intelligence networks have analyzed the technological capabilities of this Earth civilization. They lack faster-than-light communication. Their energy production is primitive, and their military capacity is negligible. Whatever method they use to reach Zephyria must have required their entire civilization's resources. They are hardly suitable partners for serious political alliance." Princess Lyralii listened patiently, her patterns maintaining their calm blues despite the rising irritation she felt. When the three had finished their formal complaints, she stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "your concerns are noted and will be addressed. However, I find myself curious about something. In all your arguments about protocol and precedent about technological capabilities and political hierarchies, not one of you has mentioned the actual purpose of these presentation ceremonies." The three suitors exchanged glances, clearly uncertain where she was leading. "The purpose," Princess Lyralii continued, "is for me to meet potential life partners, individuals with whom I might share not just political alliance, but personal compatibility. People who might become my companions, my confidants, my friends, as well as my spouses." She moved closer to them, and, suddenly, the room seemed filled with the subtle power that marked her as one of the most formidable individuals in known space. "Tell me, Prince Valdarin, in all our interactions, have you ever asked about my personal interests? Have you inquired about my hopes for the future beyond territorial expansion? Have you shown any curiosity about who I am when I am not wearing these royal robes?" Prince Valdarin's mandibles clicked uncertainly. "Your Highness, such personal matters are typically discussed after formal alliance agreements. Have you, Duke Zarathan?" Princess Lyralii continued, turning to the crystalline being, "ever wondered what brings me joy? Have you asked about my favorite music, my preferred literature, the places I dream of visiting? Have you shown interest in my thoughts about art or philosophy, or the simple pleasure of watching storms move across the gas giant's surface?" Duke Zarathin's crystalline form flickered with uncertain colors. Your Royal Highness, personal compatibility naturally develops once political frameworks. Lord Commander Vexhai, Princess Lyralii said, her voice growing stronger. In all your calculations and projections, have you ever factored in what might make me happy? Have you considered whether I laugh at the same things that amuse you? Have you wondered whether we might enjoy spending quiet evenings together? Or if our conversations might float naturally from topic to topic? Lord Commander Vexhai's augmentations whirred as he processed this unexpected line of questioning. Your Highness, emotional compatibility metrics can be calculated once basic parameters. Enough, Princess Lyralii said, her patterns flaring to bright golds and whites that made the crystalline walls of the chamber sing in harmonic response. You have answered my questions perfectly. Each of you has approached this ceremony as a business transaction. You see marriage to me as the acquisition of a valuable political asset. She moved back to the center of the room, and her voice took on the authority that had shaped the destiny of star systems. Let me share what happened yesterday evening. Marcus Chun asked me about my gardens. Not their strategic value or their technological achievements, but about the philosophy behind creating spaces where different forms of life can thrive together. He listened to my explanations with genuine interest and shared stories about Earth's ecosystems that showed he understood the underlying principles of cooperation and balance. The three suitors shifted uncomfortably as Princess Lyralii continued. He brought me a gift chosen not to impress witnesses or demonstrate his civilization's capabilities, but because he had taken the time to learn about my personal interests in poetry and literature. He spent an entire evening asking about my thoughts and sharing his own, treating me as a person worthy of knowing rather than a prize to be won. Prince Valdarin's massive form seemed to diminish slightly. Your Highness, if we have failed to show proper personal interest, you have not failed to show proper personal interest, Princess Lyralii interrupted, her patterns now blazing with certainty and power. You have revealed that personal interest was never your intention. You came here seeking political advantage through marriage, and that is precisely what you offered. She walked to the great window that looked out over the palace city, where millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds lived and worked together in harmony. Marcus Chun traveled farther than any of you to be here. His people possess none of the technological advantages or political power that you represent. Yet he accomplished something that all your impressive capabilities could not achieve. She turned back to face them, and in her expression was the wisdom and authority that made her one of the most respected leaders in known space. He made me feel seen. He made me feel valued for who I am rather than what I represent. He showed genuine interest in understanding my thoughts, my dreams, my perspective on the galaxy. He offered friendship and partnership based on mutual respect and curiosity rather than strategic calculation. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle humming of the crystalline walls and the soft whirring of Lord Commander Vexhai's augmentations. Your Highness, Duke Zarathin said carefully, surely you cannot be seriously considering a marriage alliance with such a primitive civilization. The political ramifications, Princess Lyralii said firmly, are my responsibility as heir to this throne, and I have decided that Zephyria's interests are best served by partnerships based on shared values rather than shared ambitions for conquest. She moved back to the royal dais, her presence seeming to fill the entire chamber. I'm grateful for your travels to be here, and I honor the traditions that brought us together. However, I have found in Marcus Chun something I had almost given up hope of discovering, the possibility of a true partnership with someone who sees me as Lyralii first and Princess second. Prince Valdarin's carapace plates shifted as he prepared to speak, but Princess Lyralii raised her hand. My decision is made. You are welcome to remain on Zephyria as long as you wish, and I hope we can maintain the friendships and alliances our peoples have built over the years. But my choice of life partner will be made based on personal compatibility rather than political convenience. The three suitors exchanged looks of shock and frustration, but none dared challenge her decision directly. As they filed out of the chamber, murmuring among themselves about the unprecedented nature of her choice, Princess Lyralii felt a weight lifting from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she had been carrying. For the first time in her adult life, she had chosen her own path forward based on her heart rather than her crown. The only question now was whether Marcus Chun felt the same connection she did, and whether a human from a distant world might be brave enough to accept not just her friendship, but the incredible responsibility that came with loving the most powerful princess in known space. The private dining chamber overlooked the palace's most beautiful courtyard, where floating fountains created impossible geometries of flowing water against the backdrop of Zephyria Prime's famous aurora. Princess Lyralii had chosen this intimate space for what might be the most important conversation of her life. Marcus arrived precisely on time, wearing the same simple formal attire from his presentation, but somehow seeming more relaxed and confident. His blue-green eyes immediately found hers across the room, and that warm smile she was beginning to treasure spread across his face. "Your Highness," he said, offering a bow that had become more natural and less formal over their brief acquaintance. "Thank you for inviting me to join you this evening." "Please, Marcus," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her small table. "When we're alone like this, I would prefer you call me Lyralii. I spend so much of my day being Your Highness that I sometimes forget what it feels like to simply be myself." As they settled into their meal, a careful selection of dishes that could be enjoyed by both their species, Princess Lyralii found herself studying Marcus's face in the soft light. There was something different about his demeanor tonight, a certainty and peace that hadn't been there during their garden walk. "I heard about this morning's council session," Marcus said after they had eaten in comfortable silence for several minutes. "I hope my presence here hasn't created serious diplomatic complications for you." Princess Lyralii set down her crystalline eating utensil and looked directly at him. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. The choice I made this morning was not a diplomatic decision. It was a personal one." Marcus nodded slowly, his expression growing more serious. "I had hoped that might be the case, but I needed to hear you say it. What I told the council is true," she continued, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to soft golds that reflected her emotional state. "In all my years of meeting potential suitors, you're the first person who seemed genuinely interested in knowing me rather than acquiring me." Marcus leaned forward slightly, his full attention focused on her words. "Lyralii, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have mentioned from the beginning, but I wasn't sure how you would react." A flutter of concern crossed her features. "What is it?" Marcus took a deep breath, his hands clasped together on the table. "The stories about you that reached Earth, they didn't come through normal diplomatic channels. They came from refugees." Princess Lyralii's eyes widened. "Refugees." 3 years ago, a damaged ship carrying evacuees from the Caldan system crisis made an emergency landing on Earth. We helped them repair their vessel and provided medical care for the injured. Among them was an elderly Zephyrian scholar named Kethrel. Princess Lyralii gasped, her patterns flaring bright with recognition and emotion. "Kethrel, he was my childhood tutor. I thought he had died when his research station was destroyed during the Caldan crisis." "He survived barely," Marcus said gently. He spoke often about his time on Zephyria, about the brilliant young princess he had helped educate. "He told us stories about your kindness, your wisdom, your genuine concern for all beings regardless of their species or status." Marcus paused, clearly choosing his words carefully. "He also spoke about your loneliness, about how the demands of royal duty had isolated you from the possibility of genuine personal connections. He worried that you would never find someone who could see past your title to appreciate the remarkable person beneath it." Princess Lyralii felt tears forming in her eyes, crystalline drops that caught and refracted the aurora's light. "He was always too perceptive for his own good. Before he died," Marcus continued, his voice soft with compassion, "he made me promise something. He asked me to find a way to Zephyria, to meet you in person, and to tell you that somewhere in the galaxy, people understood your true worth." The tears were flowing freely now, and Marcus instinctively reached across the table to gently touch her hand. The contact sent a warm shock through both of them. Not the calculated chemistry of political alliance, but the simple electric connection between two people who had recognized something special in each other. "He sent you," Princess Lyralii whispered. Kethral sent you to me. He gave me the information I needed to find Zephyria, and he taught me about your culture and customs. But the decision to come was entirely my own. Marcus's thumb traced gently across her knuckles. I came because his stories made me hope that somewhere in this vast galaxy, there might be someone who valued the same things I did. Someone who believed that true strength comes from understanding rather than domination. That real wisdom involves listening more than speaking. That genuine love means cherishing who someone is rather than what they can provide. Princess Lyralii turned her hand palm up, interlacing her fingers with his. His skin was warm and slightly rough from what she guessed was physical work, so different from the smooth perfection of most royal suitors. Marcus, she said, her voice trembling slightly, I need you to understand what accepting my feelings would mean. I am not just a princess. I am the heir to one of the most powerful empires in known space. The person who marries me will face scrutiny from 1,000 worlds, will become a target for political enemies, will have their every action analyzed and criticized. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I understand the risks, Lyralii. I've spent weeks researching not just Zephyrian culture, but galactic politics. I know what I would be accepting. Do you? She asked, studying his face intently. Do you understand that there will be people who see you as an upstart from a primitive world? That there will be assassination attempts and political schemes and constant pressure to prove your worthiness? That you would be giving up the quiet life of your home world for existence under constant observation? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his blue-green eyes fixed on their joined hands. When he looked up at her again, she saw not fear or uncertainty, but a calm determination that took her breath away. Lyralii, on Earth we have an old saying, home is where the heart is. I've traveled farther from Earth than any human before me, and yet sitting here with you, I feel more at home than I ever have in my life. He lifted their joined hands and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, a gesture so tender and intimate that her bioluminescent patterns blazed with joy. I'm not asking for an easy life, he continued. I'm asking for a meaningful one. I'm asking for the chance to stand beside the most remarkable person I've ever met, to support her dreams and share in her challenges, to be her partner in every sense of the word. Princess Lyralii stood up, pulling Marcus with her, and moved to the great window overlooking the courtyard. In the distance, the aurora painted the sky in colors that matched her emotional patterns, brilliant golds and purples and blues that spoke of hope fulfilled and dreams realized. Marcus, she said, turning to face him while keeping their hands joined, what I'm about to ask is completely unprecedented in Zephyrian history. There are no protocols for it, no traditions to guide us. Marcus's smile was patient and encouraging. What are you asking? I'm asking if you would be willing to undergo the bonding ceremony. Not a political marriage alliance, but a true spiritual and emotional union. A partnership between two people who choose each other not for what they can gain, but for who they are together. Marcus's eyes widened as he understood the magnitude of what she was offering. The bonding ceremony was spoken of throughout the galaxy as the most sacred and intimate commitment in Zephyrian culture, rarely performed even among Zephyrians themselves. Lyralii, he said softly, are you certain? There will be no going back, no dissolving the bond for political convenience later. Once we're bonded, we're connected for life. Princess Lyralii stepped closer, close enough that he could see the intricate patterns of light moving beneath her skin, could feel the warm energy that surrounded her like a gentle aura. I've spent my entire adult life surrounded by people who wanted to use me for their own purposes. You traveled across the galaxy not to gain power or advantage, but to offer friendship to someone you thought might be lonely. She reached up to touch his face gently. I'm certain, Marcus Chun of Earth. I am certain that I want to spend my life with someone brave enough to see me as Lyralii first and Princess second. Marcus leaned into her touch, his own hand coming up to cover hers. Then, yes, Lyralii of Zephyria Prime, I would be honored beyond measure to bond with you. As they stood together in the soft light of the aurora, two beings from worlds so distant they had never appeared on each other's star charts, they both understood that they were about to change not just their own destinies, but the entire course of galactic history. The human who had crossed impossible distances for the chance of friendship had found something far more precious than he had ever dared to hope for. And the princess who had almost given up on finding genuine love had discovered that sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come from the most unexpected places. In the months and years that followed, their bonding would create the first truly successful alliance between the isolated human worlds and the greater galactic community. Marcus's natural diplomatic skills and genuine curiosity about other cultures would make him one of the most effective ambassadors in galactic history. Princess Lyraliai's love and respect for her human partner would inspire other worlds to look beyond technological advancement and military power when choosing their allies. But in that moment, standing together as the aurora painted the sky in impossible colors, there were simply two people who had found in each other what they had been searching for all their lives. Someone who valued their heart more than their crown, their dreams more than their destiny, their love more than their legacy. The human had dared to approach when no alien suitor could succeed, not because he was braver or stronger or more clever than the others, but because he had come seeking to give rather than to take, to understand rather than to conquer, to love rather than to acquire. And in doing so, he had won not just the heart of the most powerful princess in known space, but had opened a doorway between worlds that would benefit both civilizations for generations to come.